So today we'll be talking about Dunder methods, which are short for double underscore methods. We use them for customizing the behavior of the objects that we define. For example, if you've ever defined your own class, you use the init Dunder method. So this is a Dunder method because it has the double underscores to the left and the right of the name. If you ever wondered why you can add two lists together and the result is a concatenated list, the answer is Dunder methods. So internally, whenever Python sees this plus operator, it's calling the add Dunder method of the list class, which looks like this. So this will give us the same result. So the plus operator is really just shorthand for Python calling this add method. So this is just one example of a Dunder method, this add method. There's many available, but today we'll go over some of the basic ones by implementing our own class. So to demonstrate how these work, I'll just create a class that represents a 2D point in space, and we'll call it point. It'll take in two variables, x and y. And now we'll just instantiate 2 point objects. If we try to add these together, we're going to get an exception. So here I'm trying to add the instance of A and B. And you can see we get a type error, unsupported operand types for plus, point, and point. So the reason for this is whenever Python encounters this plus operator, it's looking for the add method in whatever class it's being called on. So in order to get this to work, we'll have to define the add Dunder method. So whenever we call two objects with the plus operation, Python's going to look at this method. So just for now, I'll just return a string to demonstrate this. So after I print this out, a plus b, you can see it prints here. So all it's doing is whenever it sees this plus, it's going to look at the add Dunder method, which for now we're just returning a string here. So now that we know that it's just calling this add method, we'll just change this to actually add 2 points together. So we're customizing the behavior of this add method to add the two x's together and the two y's together. Now when I run this, you can see that we get 4 and 6, which is the addition of these 2 points. So now let's see what happens when we try to print an object out. So I'll just print out A. So we get some weird output that's not very helpful. And it turns out we can customize the behavior of the print method by defining a string method. So double underscore string. And then we'll configure this to just return a string representing the output. Now when I run this, we'll get nicer output instead of this output up here. So whenever Python sees the print statement, it's just calling the string method of the class. And again, we can make this whatever we want. So I could even change it to be like this. And now we know what the x and y coordinates are. So there are many other arithmetic operations that we can customize the behavior of using Dunder methods. Two more that would be relevant to the point class would be subtract and multiply. So we'll define them now. So whenever Python encounters the minus operation, it calls the sub Dunder method. And similar to add, we'll just subtract the x and subtract the y and return it. And whenever Python encounters the asterisk for multiply, it'll call this method. And to demonstrate this, I'll subtract 2 points and multiply 2 points. So when I run it, this first operation is the result of the subtraction of these 2 points, and this one is the result of the multiplication of those 2 points. Another cool thing we can do is define a method for indexing into our object. So if we want to define behavior for this syntax, whenever we have the square brackets, we can define the getItem method. So getItem takes in a key as a parameter. So if we ever index into our object with a 0, the key will be 0, and we'll just return the x. And we can do the same thing for y. And if we ever get a key that's not 0 or 1, we'll just raise an error. Now if we index into A and print this out, we'll get x is 1. So whenever Python sees these brackets, it'll call the getItem method with whatever's inside the bracket. So in this case, key would be 0, and we just return x. We could do the same thing with key being 1, and we'll get y. And if we ever give it a number that's not 0 or 1, it'll raise an error. So this is the error that we defined up here. We get the index error, key 5 out of range. Another useful method is the equal method. So if we ever want to compare equality between 2 points, for example like this, whenever Python sees this operation, it'll call the equal method. So we define this method like this, eq. First we'll check if the object that is being compared is an instance of a point. So if both objects are points, we'll return true if the x's and y's are equal, and then otherwise we'll return false. So now we can define a third point C, and I'll just make it the same as B above. Now if I run this, we can see that A equals B is false, and C equals B is true. That's because of this equal method here. And there are many other methods that I'm not going through here. For example, if we were to try and compare C to B by checking if it's greater than, same as before, we'll get a type error, greater than not supported between instances of point and point. So that's just telling you that we need to implement the greater than method. And I won't do that right now, but this is the function signature for greater than. So there are many others that I didn't go through. These are just some of the basic ones. So we only went over a couple of the different Dunder methods that Python has. There's a bunch, as you can see here. This is the equal one. So it'll tell you the method, what it's called, and then the parameters that it takes in. I'd encourage that everyone goes through this and tries to find ones that are interesting and try to implement something on your own using them. I'll also put a link to this in the description and maybe some other ones that we didn't get to go over that are a bit more advanced but very useful. For example, here's another one that I found while scrolling through. It's the length dunder method. So whenever you call the len method on an object, it'll actually call this. So you're able to customize the implementation of what this should return on the objects that you create. As always, thanks for watching. I only went through a couple of the more common dunder methods, but there's a bunch more to read through and try to implement. In summary, Dunder methods are methods in Python that allow you to customize the behavior of your class. Consider subscribing and sharing if you enjoyed, and please let me know if you have any questions.